Feel free to move those front ones. They're just sitting there. Okay, welcome to San Francisco Dharma Collective, where we will be collecting Dharma all night tonight while sitting still. Be filling our hearts, minds, souls, not souls, beings with Dharmas. So if you out there in YouTube land can hear this, give me the thumbs up. We've been having sound problems again, but hopefully that is over for tonight. So is anybody out there? I don't see any. Well, there's 3 viewers, so if you can hear this, viewers, then indicate that. Otherwise, what we're going to do here, is this too loud? I'll get really quiet eventually, but hopefully it's not too loud. Okay. Does it have a green light on the back? Good. Sounds good. All right, we're cooking with Kundalini here tonight. So what we're going to do is, as always, meditate. We're going to meditate for an hour. You are expected to be able to meditate for an hour, which means sit still, don't fidget, don't move at all, and please don't make sounds like deciding to unwrap a throat lozenge while taking a half an hour to do it with a really crinkly wrapper. Try to avoid doing that. So let's begin, as always, by doing deep belly breathing. For those of you who know what I mean by deep belly breathing, just go for it. For the rest of you, I'll give full instructions. What I want you to do is, hi Anthony. Good, how are you? What I want you to do is breathe in such a way that your belly is visibly moving outward, expanding outward on the in-breath, and visibly retracting back on the out-breath, so that the breath is not happening so much in the upper chest, it's not happening so much like moving your shoulders around. What's happening is your belly region is poofing out and de-poofing as you breathe in and breathe out. And so that's belly breathing, right? We're taking really long, deep breaths. Now, of course, if you have lung issues or breathing issues or whatever, just adapt this to fit your world. What I want you to do is be breathing in such a way, you can move in the center if you want. Please do. I want you to be focused on the sensations of breathing in your belly, so that you're actually feeling the belly expanding on the in-breath, feeling the belly collapsing on the out-breath. And that's what you're really paying attention to. You're trying to get really focused. If you have a hard time being focused, see if you can just stay focused for 3 breaths in a row. And then on the next one, just take a break. And then stay focused for the next 3 breaths in a row. And the next one, take a break like that. So you're just little by little staying with it, staying with it, staying with it, staying with it. Getting nice and focused. Together with that focus, it would be nice if you were noticing some sensations of relaxation. A sense of restfulness, a sense of peacefulness, a sense of openness, a sense of relief or letting go or ease, that kind of thing. If you want help with the focus, you can use the label for breathing in, which is just breathing in. Use the label for breathing out, which is just breathing out. So as you're doing this slow, deep belly in-breath, feeling your belly, you're saying breathing in. Or if it's a really, really long breath, you would be saying to yourself, breathing in, breathing in, breathing in. And then for the long out breath, breathing out, breathing out, breathing out. Whenever you do labeling, you use a really nice internal voice that's all gentle and soft and peaceful. It's not harsh or demanding or anxiety-ridden or something. It's sweet. Then, assuming that this works for you, and again, you have to monitor what works for you and what doesn't, assuming that you're interested, able, capable. You can kind of up the ante here, make the relaxing effect much, much stronger if you make the out-breath quite a bit longer than the in-breath. So at least double. And just do a long, slow out-breath. This kind of happens naturally when you get really focused anyway, so we're just going to kind of reverse. We're going to have the tail wag the dog here and have the out-breath get longer, and that will start to get you nice and relaxed and focused. For some people, when this effect really starts unfolding, the out-breath might be 4, 5, 6 times longer than the in-breath. But remember, you don't have to do that. It's just if it works for you, and make sure you don't make yourself uncomfortable doing that. It should be very, very comfortable. So no strain, no stress. Just peaceful. So we're going to sit and do this long, deep belly breathing for about 10 more minutes. If it will help you to relax a little more, allow your eyes, your eye muscles, your eyelids to relax. Any fixed expression on your face to just release. Your jaw to relax enough that your upper and lower teeth are not touching. Your lips not tense. So that your face just experiences some mild relaxation. And notice as your face relaxes that relief, that opening, that peace kind of sets a wave of relaxation going through the entire body. And then if your throat is tight for whatever reason, just make the same muscle action you would make if you were trying to deepen your voice. Just relax and open. And allow your arms and hands to become as loose as wet rags. So there's just zero tension at all in your arms and your hands. You can't even move them if you want to, because they're just so released and relaxed and open. And notice how this belly breathing is massaging your diaphragm. So as you're continuing to breathe, the diaphragm relaxes, releases, becomes less tense, opens, finds deeper peace. And then notice that this deep belly breathing is actually relaxing your hips and all the muscles in your pelvis, all the way down to the perineum and even into the legs, so that it has a massaging, opening, relaxing action on the entire pelvic region. Good. Now continuing to just contact body sensation right in the belly, feeling this deep belly breathing. You can actually return to normal breathing, but still feel the same area, or continue with deep belly breathing if you like that. Just contact the sensation of breathing. But I want you to begin to notice that inside the sensation there is vast, spacious awareness. Another way of putting this is just locate a spot in this lower belly region, the pelvic region, that feels kind of empty, and begin to focus on the vast spaciousness there, that kind of enormous, boundaryless, timeless, open quality there. If you can't find it, just stick with this, contacting the sensation there. Often when we contact vast, spacious awareness, we kind of go outside ourselves into a huge realm, but the huge realm is available in any spot, no matter how tiny the spot seems to be physically. So just hang out in the pelvic region, notice the vast, spacious awareness there. You can recognize vast, spacious awareness as peaceful, as incredibly still, no matter how much movement is going around outside it or even within it. The spacious awareness itself is absolutely still, utterly immovable, utterly unruffleable. And as the name implies, it has this feeling of boundarylessness, it has this feeling of tremendous space, tremendous openness and room. And paradoxically, even though it's spacious, it has this immobile quality, like a mountain as big as a planet. It's utterly like a diamond mountain, completely immovable, completely solid and still. And see if you can connect with that grounding, peaceful solidity there via the body. You don't do this with concepts, you do this with the body. The body just tunes into this deep, 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 grounded, open, solid space. takes zero thought to do this, zero conceptualizing. It just takes noticing. Just direct noticing. It's already there. You're not generating it or imagining it. You're simply noticing. See if you can notice how these body sensations of breathing, the body sensations of the belly, the body sensations in the pelvis, are continually dissolving into that spacious awareness. Each time you notice a sensation, it's kind of a sensory object, and then it's vibrating sensory activity, and then it just dissolves into space. And the space is always there. Another way you can notice is that the space keeps turning into sensation. But if you're particularly focused on sensation, it's easy to watch it just kind of become fizzy and bubbly and then dissolve and go to space. And begin to notice this anywhere in your body, anywhere you feel a sensation. The minute awareness touches the sensation dissolves and reveals vast space, vast spacious awareness. Now, just as in any typical vipassana, just allow awareness to move around, attention to move around from body sensation to body sensation to body sensation, in the head, in the neck, in the shoulders, in the arms, in the chest, in the belly, in the legs, in the feet, anywhere, front, back, sides. Just contact sensations. As you contact each sensation, notice that it dissolves into vast space. And wherever awareness lands on a sensation, vast spacious awareness is fully present there. It's as if the sensations are just dreams or shadows or mist or gaze, and then awareness opens them up and reveals their nature as vast, spacious awareness. So wherever attention lands, just notice the vast, spacious awareness in that spot. Every time it seems as if the sensation is solid, just notice that all you have to do is relax and it will just open up into vast, spacious awareness. There's just no effort required, just relaxing and opening. The effort is into continuously trying to make things appear to be solid. So just relax and notice their tendency to dissolve into vast space. Peaceful, still awareness. Almost like any body sensation is a dream, and you're just waking up from the dream to the reality of vast, spacious awareness in that spot, over and over. You may also notice that any sense of having an emotion, especially a body sensation of emotion, in any way about anything, as you attend to it, and that body sensation of emotion dissolves and opens into space, just space. Vast, peaceful stillness and awareness. Emotions themselves are just made of the energy of awareness. Oh, body sensations are vast, spacious awareness. Emotions are vast, spacious awareness. You may even notice that thoughts themselves, if thoughts arise, they themselves are just composed of nothing other than vast, spacious awareness. There's no thought that is anything other than empty stillness. Try not to move at all, just stay still. may even begin to notice that when attention falls on any object in the exterior world, that reveals itself to be vast, spacious awareness also. So if it feels like there's a cushion or chair beneath you, notice that that is nothing other than vast, spacious awareness. If it seems that there are others in the room around you, notice that that is nothing besides vast, spacious awareness. If there's sounds in the world around you, those are revealed to be vast, spacious awareness. So everything within, thoughts, emotions, sensations, everything without, sounds, sights, touches, ideas, concepts, memories, plans, fantasies, it's all revealed to be vast, spacious awareness. If you feel like it, you can allow the world and self and others to seem to arise out of that spacious awareness, and we can interact. But of course, nothing has changed. It's still possible to continue to notice spacious awareness wherever attention lands. I don't think we ever turned out the lights, but if there are more lights to turn on, go ahead and do that. Feel free to move and stretch and so on. Thanks, Suzanne. Vipassana style meditation and Nondual style meditation are often seen as quite different or very contrasting or somehow not compatible, but of course they're entirely compatible. Got hair on my face. It's just a matter of noticing how they're compatible or how they fit together. And it's kind of interesting. There's a sequence that people tend to go through in their vipassana that is not the progress of insight model, not that sequence, and not the progressive shamatha sequence. But it's just a sequence of higher and higher, let's say, sensory clarity. So it's really common that when you first start to do meditation, that what's really going on is you're kind of, let's say someone tells you to meditate on breathing or on the breath. Usually they say meditate on the breath, whatever that is. If someone's being a little clearer, they'll say meditate on body sensations of emotion, of body sensations of breathing. I like body sensations of emotion better as an object. But let's meditate on body sensations of breathing. And what happens is with a very first time person is that they're meditating on ideas about breathing, ideas about their lungs, ideas about the breath. They're sort of thinking about breathing. And this is the opening stage where there's not a lot of contact with the actual body sensations, but it's more of a concept. And you're still meditating, you're still getting focused, you're still kind of tuning out from the distractions and tuning into breathing, but in a way it's still an idea of breathing. So that's kind of what I would call stage one, this conceptual stage where it's about the object. And then gradually, as you become more and more focused, and with good guidance, you're trying to get into the phenomenology of the sensations. You let go a little bit more and a little bit more of ideas about it, and instead are kind of just contacting the sensation itself. And the first time that happens, usually someone will be kind of shocked by it, like, wow, I was really plugged in, or I really sunk into it, or somehow something really changed. And what changed is that the concept level kind of either vanished or slowly faded into the background. It might have still been there, but it's not foreground, it became background. And for at least part of the meditation, the person is really contacting the sensation itself, the quality of the sensation. So instead of like the idea of breathing, or yes, my breathing, it's more like there's some constriction there, there's some heat there, there's pressure over here, there's tingling over there. It might feel like it's expanding back here and contracting here, stuff like that. Things that are all phenomenological, experiential, not conceptual. And so that's kind of stage 2, where we're contacting the object and its qualities. And that's already really nice. You're letting go of a lot of these sort of fulminations of the higher concepts, the higher activity, and just kind of getting grounded in the sensation. And I'm using body sensation as an example, but you can do this with thoughts, you can do it with emotion, you can do it with external sight and sound, you can do it with any sensation, right? It doesn't have to be the body. It could be anything. And we could divide that into layer after layer after layer after layer of how it deepens. It deepens for different people in slightly different ways, but it's super fascinating to watch happen as people grow into that and start to let go of more and more layers of concept and get into more and more details of the moment, actual experiencing the now of that sensation in all its really super fine detail. It's very cool to be with people as they do that, or to watch that unfold. Right? It's becoming alive in the moment in a way. And as that deepens and the person gets more and more and more clarity, like a much higher resolution. So at first the objects tend to be big and blocky with very few qualities. But as we deepen through that stage, they become much more nuanced, much more subtle, tons and tons of qualities. And then this thing starts happening where you're noticing the qualities are changing. As you're observing the object, it's changing a little bit. It was kind of like a brick shape, but then the corner of the brick kind of dissolved away, and now it's shaped differently, and then that came back, or whatever. Right? It gets much more nuanced and much more subtle and fine-grained. So a lot of detail, and then you start noticing that things are changing, and that leads into what I would call the third stage, where it's less of an object with a bunch of qualities and much more like stuff happening. Right? It changes from being solid object to waves of activity or movements or impermanent type phenomena. And so instead of, oh, there's this sensation there, or there's this object in the room over there, it's more like some stuff is happening here and some visual stuff is happening there. Right? It's like happening instead of things. So the objectness changes to activityness or movement, or nouns change to verbs or whatever. And that's a major, major shift where you're just really going into the impermanence. And, you can, again, with that, just get higher and higher concentration, finer and finer grain detail, noticing more and more and more and more and more and more impermanent activity, stuff just happening. And then eventually way down in there at the bottom of that, as you get further and further down there, the activity gets like further and further apart. And it may seem for a while like there's more and more waves and more activity and more stuff changing, but as you get deeper and deeper and deeper in there, it kind of slows down and opens up. And eventually, there's no activity at all. There's just vast, spacious awareness with no object at all. Right? So we drill down, and that's the fourth layer. So we drill down, or fourth, phase. So we start with contacting a sensation as a concept, and then as an object, and then as an activity, and then as vast, spacious awareness. So even if your practice is just following your breath at your nose, eventually, it will go from being the idea of the breath at your nose to like these sensations that are very clear and finer and finer grained, and then eventually it's just a bunch of moving kind of stuff, and then it just opens up. space, right? But it can also happen with emotions, it can also happen with thoughts, it can happen with the image of this room in your eyes right now. All sensations do the same thing, or awareness handles them the same. And so drilling down through sensations like that, in these 4 layers, you end up, at vast spacious awareness. That's what's down at the bottom there. That's what we would call, the source, or Tathagata or Buddha nature, or whatever. Drilling down, you find this openness. But the funny thing is that the openness was always there, right? The vast spacious awareness was always there. It wasn't somehow not present at the beginning. And so for some people, some of the time, you can just kind of cheat and go straight to the vast spacious awareness. You can just notice that. And if you try a little bit more, most people, most of the time, can just notice it. Because it's there to be noticed. It's not somehow a thing you're cultivating, or a thing you're creating, or a thing you're eventually pure enough, or holy enough, or perfect enough to notice. It's just there. And so it might take some concentration and some clarity and some equanimity and so on to notice it, but it's there to be noticed. And so what's fascinating is that you can, both drill down through sensation in the way I'm describing to arrive at that, but you can also start there and kind of come back the other way. And so an interesting way to practice, especially if you're a vipassana practitioner, is to at least some of the time do a vast spacious awareness type meditation, because it's showing you that bottom layer much more clearly. Right? That open, still space and peace. Right? And the clearer that becomes, then as you're drilling down to a sensation, that's what you're going to find down there. So you kind of already know where to look, in a sense. And so it helps. It's sort of like you're drilling from both ends. Right? It makes it, in a way, easier. And then for people who practice, let's say, in an Advaita tradition, or a Neo-Advaita tradition, or a Nondual tradition, where it's just about contacting vast spacious awareness and nothing else, something fascinating about those traditions is they can be quick. You can notice this thing very quickly, but it can also be kind of limited. Because maybe yes, if I'm sitting on my meditation cushion in my quiet room, or if I'm out in the park or whatever, and I'm looking at the sky, or I'm out at the seashore or whatever, I can contact vast spacious awareness, or I can contact non-dual awareness. But then if I'm in a fight with my boss, I can't, right? And so it has this kind of limited quality, because they're just always looking for the peaceful space outside. And this is where vipassana skill is so powerful, because you know how to even take the upwelling of a strong, intense emotion during an argument and just whoop, right? Even that has the vast spacious awareness inside it. Or having all these thoughts. You don't have to dispel the thoughts, just be able to just observe how they burst into space over and over again. Right? So the vipassana really helps to broaden and deepen and increase the duration of, and in a way the durability of the ability to notice this non-dual awareness, right? This vast space. So both directions have real advantages, which is why doing both is so cool. It really helps. But usually the trick is that it's, as I keep saying week after week, it's like too easy. And so people think that can't really be it, I'm imagining it, or it's something deeper or weirder than just the vast space I'm noticing. But no, that's it. It's really pretty easy to contact if someone's pointing it out to you. It's just about then deepening that and being able to see it longer and also under more conditions, which is again where vipassana helps. Eventually you want to have it be that no matter what's arising, a lot of thought, a lot of emotion, a lot of exterior chaos, a lot of interior chaos, you can just notice, like very quickly, okay, there's an object, but it's vibrating in its space. Right? No matter what it is, it's just kind of goes to space. And then if we kind of go even further, once you get good at that, that sounds like it's the end, right? Okay, now I've increased this so much, not only can I contact it at the beach or whatever, when I look at the sky, but I can contact it during a, altercation or during some super intense moment. But that's only halfway there. It's like really good. That's a wonderful place to be, but it's only halfway there. All the way there is then to notice the opposite thing happening too, right? So there's all this spacious awareness, and it's kind of dreaming itself and the world into being continuously, dreaming of you and the world into being over and over again with a lot of energy. So it's kind of reversing the process. It goes from space to super vibratory intensity into objects and then into ideas about objects. It just keeps doing that. And that's the re-ensoulment of the world. That's the energy and beauty and intensity of the Vajrayana move. So that's what we're doing here, playing with these two sides of sensation and awareness over and over and over and over and over again. It's kind of learning to go through these layers backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and over here and over there and with this kind of stuff and with that kind of stuff until it becomes really easy. And then you start to notice amazing things about yourself and the world and other people and other beings and so on. It's very hard to stay locked up in, the bullshit cage when you're doing this kind of work. Because it just keeps falling apart or dissolving or being seen through. Hopefully. Some of this stuff can be hijacked or misused to kind of obscure. Like you can imagine if you get good at just letting everything go to vast spacious awareness, you can just be like, well, I don't need to pay my rent because money is vast spacious awareness. And people do that all the time, that's spiritual bypassing. And it's like a really, it's a big problem. I don't recommend doing that. But you could do that, any powerful tool can be misused. It reminds me of a way of this Kafka novelette. It's not even a novelette, it's a short story called Die Sorge des Hausvaters. So they usually translate that as the worries of a house father. It's like no good way to say it in English, but like, sort of what dad's worried about. And what dad is worried about is this thing called Otradek. Anybody heard of Otradek? Otradek, Kafka, even though he's a Czech author, wrote in German, right? So all his works are in German. But this word Otradek comes from Czech. And it's hard to translate, but it kind of means thingamabob. Or what, who's it, or what's it. And Kafka, in this short story, does this really interesting thing. He's like, this guy is, this house father, normal dad, is worried about this thing that's under the stairs. And then he starts to, called Otradek, and he starts to describe Otradek. And the more he describes it, like you start to get this mental image of what this little guy is under the stairs, but the more he describes it, the image starts to just fall apart. Till by the end of the story, you have no fucking clue what this thing is. Right? At first, you kind of thought you did, and the more he describes it, the more it just dissolves your understanding of what it is. And these days, Kafka wasn't writing critiques of capitalism or whatever. He's doing a thing about, conscious awareness. These days they talk about it as in terms of the useless object and its meaning in capitalism and stuff. It's just total bullshit. It has nothing to do with what that story is about. The story is about how, words and concepts can be used to deconstruct as much as they can be used to construct, right? It's really interesting. There's a Japanese author, Yukio Mishima, who wrote something very similar in his book, Toyota Tetsu, Sana and Steel, where he's talking about, the destructive quality of language, where it can be when you try to really describe something, it falls apart. You're actually undescribing it, or the more that he talked about it as kind of, I can't remember what exact image he used, but it was like locusts devouring the thing, like the words just kind of obscured the thing until it was gone. So this reminds me in a way of how the awareness can both obscure the thing or reveal the thing, depending on how you're using it. It can help the world come into existence, or it can help the world dissolve out. And not in some negative or positive way, but it just does that. Right? We can kind of allow things to congeal into being, and that being is incredibly poignant and intense and beautiful and powerful and energized. There you were. There's, the dog's nose. Hi. Or, things just keep vanishing. And there's a way you can just see, you can see it where all religion comes from. It's so obvious when you start noticing this stuff, because it's like there's just this huge nothing that is congealing into self and world and others and being all the time. It just keeps doing it. It's bizarre. And then it dissolves back, right? And it's very tempting to make that thing into a thing, or make awareness into a thing, or somehow reify the whole situation. But of course, the whole teaching here is not to do that. But notice that even awareness is a thing that dissolves and falls apart. As soon as you try to reify the vast, spacious awareness into a thing, you've made a thing, and that's just going to dissolve again. So we're working our way back and forth, up and down this stack, and no position on that is better than some other position. It's not like, you've all got to get to that spacious awareness and then just fucking stay there. Just be dissolved. That's it. That's being spiritual. Although many, many, many traditions will tell you that. Or it's not like, all concepts are bad, and as long as we're contacting, objects as phenomenologies, then we're good. But the minute you have a concept, that's it. You failed. Every one of these layers is interesting and powerful and beautiful and amazing and worthwhile. So trying to privilege one over another, or make one serve another, or one be behind, it's continuously rotating. So getting stuck on any one of those is interesting, but it's useful to not be stuck, right? That's why we don't really call this thing enlightenment. We call it liberation or freedom or awakening, because you're not stuck. You're awake to the whole process. You're not just seeing the concept level. Most people in the States are walking around just in the concept level. And if, God forbid, like they have an actual sensation that they notice that pulls them out of concepts, I felt my body, they'll just go right back into having anxiety about what that means. You know, oh my God, I gotta go to the doctor, and what if I'm sick, I have cancer, holy fuck. Right, they're just staying up there. So, you know, like glued to the concept level. And so, you know, loosening up and being able to come down into like some actual object-y, content-y stuff, and then you know, just activity, and then space is available whenever. All of that's interesting. All of that's really interesting and powerful. So, questions, comments, reports, capitalist, anti-capitalist critiques. The useless lecture. Back. I think I see Corinne raising her hand back there.
Yes,
You're going to have to yell a lot.
okay, I'm Corinne, and the reading by the bell give me energy. Like, and I feel like it's a powerful, it lifts me up, give me energy, and so I like to do it.
Awesome. Continue to do it. Be uplifted and energized. That's awesome. Thank you, Corinne. What else? Yes, Robert, right?
Yes. I have a long, illustrious career of swallowing saliva, but tonight I'd like to entertain the notion that I was in a jhanic state, but I might have been in sinking mind, and I had that little coughing fit. But that's one of the two things I wanted to say. The other thing was...
Why are you telling us about your coughing fit?
Because I interrupted...
Oh, you're apologizing.
I apologize
okay.
for interrupting this. I tried to be quiet, but I couldn't.
You were fine.
I'm sitting here meditating, and then I'll have thoughts, and I'll be extremely distracted. I'll come back to regular vipassana, and I find it to be, by comparison to vast spatial awareness,
Spacious,
yeah, that it's very verbal. And when I go into vast spacious, that it's nonverbal, and I'm able to sit there for a while, but then other thoughts and sensations will come up, and then I'll kind of like go back to like kind of a verbal state. Oh yes, that's right. And I observe it, let it go, and then go back, and I shift back, but not as easily.
Yeah, so, you know, in a lot of Buddhist tradition, particularly Tibetan tradition, they'll teach it. Some of this, like saying, okay, listen to your thinking, and then notice between two thoughts, there's like just a gap, and that gap is vast spacious awareness. So blah, 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 and the gap in there, what's happening? Just boom, space, right? And then, you know, one of the techniques is like, well, make the gaps bigger. So you notice that. So that's kind of what you're describing, right? It's like when the verbiage is not there, the concept level is not there, it's easier to notice this space. But eventually, where we went to is even the talking is space, right? It's just vibration, and vibrations need space to happen. There's vast spacious awareness there too. So the talking itself doesn't even get in the way. The talking itself is a gap, the mental talking. So just, again, we don't want to somehow say the talking is bad and the gaps are good. It just leads to all kinds of internal conflict that is totally useless. Okay? So don't get caught in that. What else? Yes?
I'm Nick.
Hi Nick, talk loud.
I just wanted to share just a couple of observations from my experience. Oftentimes when I'm trying to drop into vast spacious awareness.
Don't try.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I've been doing in the past with these states oftentimes is I realized I was visualizing it, in part because it's such a metaphorical, I mean, it's vast, it's spacious, right? So for me it evokes physical space. And I think partly because I don't really see mental images, it's all black and splotchy. I was sort of trying to expand that. But this time I I just, per the instructions, just got in touch with body sensations. It also mapped out like a space, but that wasn't in competition with my sort of striving. So that was helpful.
Good. Even if you're visualizing it, the visualization itself is happening in vast spacious awareness. So don't mistake the visualization for the vast spacious awareness, but notice you don't have to collapse the visualization. It's already happening in the space. So that even that it works. But of course, as you're describing all sensations, vast spacious awareness is like, in a way, kind of similar to mathematical infinity or whatever. It has weird properties. You can have it all around us as this giant vast space, but you can also just have it in one little spot, and yet in that spot is vast spacious awareness as huge as any other. Or maybe we could maybe say they are different sizes of vast spacious awareness, but they both appear to be boundaryless. Right? And it's interesting that you can find it in the tiniest sensation. What else? Kari.
Okay, I have two.
Two.
That's okay. One is related to your lecture, and one is tangential.
We're looking for cotangently, or yeah. Okay.
So I'm curious, to what extent does focusing on, for example, the sensations of the breath of the nose, help me develop sensory clarity about the sensations in my toe?
A lot. Assuming you're attempting to contact the sensations in the nose with a lot of sensory clarity. If you're not doing that, then it's not helping much. But, there's a structure in the brain, it's bilateral, so it's two structures. The insulae for two of them are insular cortices, and they are responsible for being able to feel the stuff inside your body, and those get physically larger the more you meditate. So, the brain is packing on neurons there to make it higher and higher resolution. It's like upgrading the graphics card, more and more and more. And so when that gets good in one spot, it gets good for all spots, right? So you just get better at feeling.
I remember my psych textbook in college said that there are different parts of the brain that correspond to different parts of the body.
That is true.
Okay. So it would also help.
It helps for all of that, yes. And that's only one question.
Okay. The other one, so I'm remembering a few weeks ago you were talking about an experience you had when you were meditating a lot and someone almost ran over you when you were biking. You got really angry.
Yeah,
But
super angry.
You were able to deal with it skillfully because of your practice.
Yes.
What kind of practice were you doing?
I was doing meditation on body sensations of emotion, which, like I said earlier, I think should be everyone's core practice. Just sitting there meditating on emotional body sensations. And it's super important that you're not trying to get some emotions or try to resist or control or deny or suppress other emotions. They're all equally good, absolutely 100%. No choice there. Whatever's arising is what's arising, and you're contacting it with a lot of clarity and a lot of equanimity over and over and over and over and over. Super powerful practice. Life-changing practice if you get good at it. But it requires, just like we're not trying to get vast spacious awareness as opposed to thinking or whatever, we're not trying to get happy as opposed to angry in that meditation. We're just whatever's coming up, so what's coming up. And there's many, many different kind of models of meditation, and I am much more aligned with the ones that allow, any emotion to arise, and they're all equally valid and equally good. I feel like if we're only trying to get good emotions or trying to somehow eradicate bad emotions, that just leads to suppression and denial, which leads to bad behavior, which is just not good for anybody. Right? It makes your life kind of constricted in a funny way. So it's more about, instead of thinking of meditation as being about getting good emotions, it's more about allowing all emotions to happen and having this vast space for them to happen in. And that vast space is where all the freedom and equanimity is. It's not in controlling the emotions. Yes. Laura.
Does it make sense to combine spacious awareness with vipassana, like in the moment, like use, like if you say you're doing a body scan, to use spacious awareness to do scanning the body, or you're feeling body sensations and emotion? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and many times during the past few months we have done exactly that. Sometimes it's too confusing, so you might just want to do vipassana, you might just want to do spacious awareness, but as you get more and more facile with both of those and kind of fluent and able to work with them, then you can start doing mix and match stuff that's very powerful and interesting. So yeah, it not only makes sense, I recommend it. Yes,
So,
Jean-Francois.
yes, coming back to your comment about, let's say, equanimous awareness over all type of emotions,
Yeah,
I heard some teachers say, if you put awareness on awesome emotion, it will cultivate them. And then conversely, if you put awareness on unwholesome emotion, it will tend to make them lose potency and so on. So it seems like they put some value judgment or something like that. And
sure.
change and practice will have this effect. So how does
Different
that
people have different opinions.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's that simple. And even different flavors of Buddhism have different opinions about it. Right? So you get to decide which one works for you or which one you think is valid.
Or try it out.
Yeah, try it out. Yes.
My name's Elf. It's good to be here.
Hi, Elf.
Not on YouTube,
Yeah,
but
welcome.
thank you. Question's kind of related to hers, but I find with my practice, like vipassana can sharpen clarity, kind of like a knife.
Yep.
And in my exploring vast spacious awareness, usually do nothing is easier for me, just
Okay.
with no effort.
Mm-hmm.
But then I find there's something I'm missing in regards, sometimes the clarity doesn't seem to get there, or it gets more vague. I don't say, maybe not vague, but it doesn't seem like it's getting sharper, or it's just a function of practice and time.
Depends, because if we're having sensory clarity on content, in a way that's the opposite of the vast space, right? So, but there is a way to do it, again, where we're going back and forth, either watching the sensory object dissolve into space and doing that with tremendous clarity, or observing the space congealing into objects and doing that with tremendous clarity. The thing that's funny about that is, especially when there's a strange transition between, the seeing things as phenomenological object stage and the sort of like impermanent wave activity stage. And that is, as you get better and better and better and better and better at the phenomenology, everything gets clearer and sharper and clearer and sharper and crisper and clearer and sharper and crisper. It's like the focus is just getting so good. Everything's so crisp. And then there will come this moment, just heard so many people describe this moment, and I had this moment, and it's like, fuck. I was in this retreat, and everything got clearer and clearer and clearer, and then it just turned to mush. It just turned to mush. And it's weird, because usually when it does that, in the past I was tired, but this was weird. I was getting more focused, and everything turned to mush. It's like my clarity disappeared. What the fuck? And I get really upset. Like, I don't get it. I'm actually getting better, and then it just goes away. What's really happening, of course, is that they're used to objects. And objects get clear, clear. And then they get so clear that you start seeing them as impermanent, and now it's like a cloud of activity, and it's a different kind of clarity. So actually, they're actually progressing. It's just because the object stops being like cut glass with shiny, sharp edges, and suddenly it's dissolved. It's like, wait, I lost my clarity. But of course, the clarity's increased, and they're seeing the impermanence. So that's a funny thing that can happen there. But so sensory clarity can be part of it all the way along. There's even some sensory clarity about vast spacious awareness. One is that it does have qualities. It can become like it's vast, it's spacious, it's peaceful, it's solid, it's immobile. It even has warmth. It likes you. There's just some subtle qualities in there. That's one way. Another way is that it is it's possible to be in contact with the vast space in different ways. I would say. So yeah, and what I mean by that actually is this particular object and its vast spacious awareness associated with that, instead of that usual panoramic, all sensation dissolve. That's the typical way it's taught, just external panorama, look at the sky, now just kind of fade back into vast spacious awareness. But you can do it this other way, right inside, that ball. Sort of the William Blake idea, right? The grain of sand has infinity in it if you stare at it, and that's just direct experience. So lots of sensory clarity possible in that realm, but it is different. In a way, if we're trying to be clear about sense activity, nothing's clearer than vast space. Yes, you again. You didn't even ask her to.
Well, that actually, I've had a question I've been wondering about asking is that this vast spacious awareness has been really resonating with me, and I've just kind of felt it a lot, and I've also been feeling a lot more fuzzy-headed lately, and I don't know if that's just
A lot more.
fuzzy-headed. So maybe it skips straight to the motion, never have the clarity.
You mean fuzzy-headed walking around?
Yeah.
Yeah, it can tend to have that quality sometimes. For a while, many of us keep parts of life clear through anxiety. I've got to keep my calendar really figured out because I'll lose my job. So there's a lot of tension keeping that clarity in there. And, you can go through a long phase where it's like, oh, I'm touching the vast space and I keep missing appointments. Right? I famously have a calendrical handicap. I just can't figure out what day it is because of just doing this a lot. It's like there's just zero tension around that. So yes, it can do that, or I'm just senile. And so, it's possible. And so, or too much drugs, or who knows. But I'm going to blame it on, meditation, because it sounds virtuous. It's going to look better. And so, but it's not like you're stuck there. You can always decide to be more intense about the calendar. But what people call fuzzy-headed can turn out to be very, really close to, just being awake for that moment. Oh, I'm just not anxious and I'm kind of open. That's beginner's mind, right, Shoshin? So, let's meditate for a very short time. We went way over tonight. The great thing about vast spacious awareness, you drop into it, it's utterly timeless. So 1 minute of this equals an hour of this or a lifetime. as I said, very short. So thank you for coming tonight to San Francisco Dharma Collective, the world's foremost Dharma collective. And we will now have announcements from SFDC via Suzanne.
Via me. I'm going to be super short.
The vehicle of Suzanne. Suzanne's tall, but claiming she's going to be short.
Yeah.
Just desecrated the bowl.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
I love calendrically challenged. I've never heard that word used that way, and that's excellent. Also, can you please, real quick, tell us what your shirt means, what it says?
It's the name of a band.
Oh, I thought it was something like Kafka.
Well, they're still around.
Anyway, real quick, thank you everybody for coming. And I wanted to real quick just say this Saturday, Michael and Vincent Horn are doing a day-long Metadharma. And if you want to stay and do a double header, Eric Davis will be here for Psychedelic Sangha. Super cool. You should come to that. And don't forget, on September 1st, we're doing a trip to the Asian Art Museum. You can meet me there at 10 a.m. It's going to be excellent. There's info in the calendar and stuff. So anyway, thank you. And we this couldn't happen without all of you. So thank you for being here tonight. There's so many people, and I'm so happy to see so many faces I know, but so many faces I'd like to get to know. So thank you. That is all.
Awesome. Let's not forget that September 14th, Saturday, we'll have Death Sangha, where we meditate on death, Saturday nights from 7 to 9. This week, due to popular request, we will be wearing corpse makeup. So either do that at home or come prepared to be painted that way and then get into the various intense, dark, serious, challenging, upsetting, enlightening death meditations that we do. And then also, we now know that on November 8th through the 14th, which even though that's, November 8th to the 11th, even though that's 4 days, it's 3 nights. I have a 3-night retreat. I'll be leading a Deconstructing Yourself retreat at Vajrapani Retreat Center in Boulder Creek, down in the woods. So if you want to do 3 nights and 4 days of this kind of stuff in November, let's do it. All right, thank you, everybody.
Hit the button.
We're here, this little X.
I was.